20 January 2019 by someone's calendar. What I want to do is read a comment that I've left in quite a few places. I'll reply to that comment and then the reply that I replied back with. And then from there, I just want to talk in general from my own experience, just from my story instead of his story, as best I can. But right up front, I need to put a kind of disclaimer, because were I to have heard the words I'm about to say 5 or 10 years ago, I would have let myself get enraged to a point to where I would have mentally shut off to what was being said. I know I would have. So that's the preface for whatever comes, however it's edited together, whatever I might happen to say, aside from what I'm going to read. I know what that says already, but I've grown up since. Truly. So I just want to share, and I'm saying this because I feel it needs to be said. I feel it needs to be heard. It's about the bad parts of life and how we've gotten to where we've gotten to and what's going on and things like that. So please, if you do notice something that I say, some language that I use or terminology or anything that you feel like it's an attack on a certain belief that you hold, and you start to react to it and want to get angry or shut off, please hear me out. Because I do wish I would have heard these words sooner or earlier in life and would have taken them to heart. I should have listened to these words were I able at the time. So please just take it for what it's worth. So before I read these comments, keep in mind, I was a scout in the Army for 21 years. I thought I was doing all the right things for all the right reasons. I thought I was defending and protecting my country. And I never looked deeper. But I wasn't able to, as it turns out, as I know now. So keep that in mind as I read, because what I'm about to read will sound totally contradictory to someone that spent 21 years in the military proudly and was good at it and this, that, and the other. But here's where I am now. Let me read. This is a comment I left on a video. Great talk, thank you. I am a vet, in parentheses, not that it matters, just background. We need to stop fighting greed-driven wars as pawns for those whose only aim is to control and subjugate the lives of others. All of these systems are built on divided belief, atop money. Belief comes from outside sources and are not knowing. Knowing comes from inside, but only when the work is done to know. Evil is a choice. It is not necessary. Moral goodness is a choice, and soulful. I do wonder who the good guys are. I see all the same poison chemical concoctions being passed as food, drink, and medicine still being produced and consumed. They have purposefully broken society. I put up a short talk, 13 minutes, etc., 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 just about sharing a video that I put up, just trying to, share as best I can, where I can, when I can. So let me read the reply, which I appreciate too. Here it is. I'm curious, do you understand that as a vet, you willingly worked for the most evil people on the planet? Do you understand that while wearing that uniform, you yourself were evil incarnate? Do you look back on the choice to serve those who wish to destroy all that is good as a bad choice, as a horrible mistake? Please do not tell me that it was necessary for you to learn. either. Do you still support the military? Do you still fly flags? I ask all of this out of pure curiosity. My brother is a Marine, and he refuses to look into any information about who exactly he serves. He refuses to look into the reasons behind all of the past and present wars. So, I'm just curious, especially considering how much your post emphasized the idea of morality. Thanks. I do appreciate that. So, my reply. I realized all of those things deeply. I almost joined the group that killed themselves because they don't understand or can't understand what's happened and what they've done and why. Not to worry, I have judged myself deeply and have suffered / do suffer from my choices and actions. All I can do now is try to do better and warn others before they have a past they can't live with. My first serious talk about it was a video I called My Contribution to Truth. Something like that. Feel free to listen if you'd like. I do hope you can get through to your brother. The vaccines and training make one unable to think and feel clearly for themselves. They keep folks locked somehow in the state of animal man. The scariest thing is that everything seems normal to them. The spirit and soul suppressed into almost nothing. For 39 years I was broken. In the past 3, I have put myself together in a moral way that I should have been taught. Better late than never. Hope that kind of answered. Much care. So now from here, I guess I will just kind of expand from there and just talk about my experience and just talk some more. We'll see how it edits together. I was gonna wait to record anymore until I went inside because it's -2. It's a bit cold out, so I figured I'd record by the fire and talk a little bit more. But while I was thinking about it, I want to say something pretty quick while I'm thinking about it. I am not calling anyone an animal, wherever you are, whatever uniform you wear, whatever you do, whatever you've chosen to do, your line of work, your profession, nothing. Don't take it like that. I'm talking about a state of being, and I'm talking about that from a place inside. Let me read something that might go along to. This will have to be cut out. This little pause, but let me read this. This might explain a little bit better where I'm coming from because I'm not name calling. I'm trying to explain is what I'm trying to do as best I can. I jotted this down earlier. I'm trying to say things from my own experience to try and draw someone listening into their own experience, however they might be able to relate. Speaking from my story, as I said earlier, after deep analyzation and introspection, really looking deep into myself and really to the point of trying to define and characterize and figure out just what exactly was a thought when it would occur and what happened and what I felt and what was emotion. How did that relate? How did that attach? And the feeling. And then where did it all come from and what's all going on? So, and in that place of trying to figure out just what had happened, it was, there was a long period of time of just being crushed. Because I realized my soul really had been indeed shattered due to my own choices that I made along the way, So, and I had to put those pieces back together kind of inside to try and figure out anything for myself. The biggest thing really at first that I realized was I had to discard my beliefs, and quickly, because it was my beliefs that had carried me to the point that I was, and I couldn't make it anymore. My health was failing in multiple ways. My mental health had failed long ago, and I didn't realize, and my spiritual health was nil, and I didn't know it until I really went inward, quietly inward, and really dealt with things from the past. All that baggage from the past, all my choices and actions and inactions and thoughts. I had to go in and deal with it to try and put it together and figure out what it all meant. So, I'd probably say more in by the fire. So at this point in the evening, the blood moon eclipse is happening. It's going on right now, and I thought I was done recording earlier. I went and sat by the fireplace and talked for about 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so, deep into the psychology of me and where I come from and how I got there and looking back. Then my phone overheated, it shut off. I ended up with 54 seconds. So after recording a quick conclusion, thought I was done, and now here I am trying to redo this middle part that's here right now. Because it's worth the effort. Really looking back through my past and trying to figure out how I got to where I was and what I believed, why I believed what I believed. I found out that I had to get rid of all the taught beliefs that I had, and I had to think for myself, feel for myself. I had to figure out what, and I might be repeating myself here from earlier, so. Okay, anyway, for me as a kid, my mom was in the Air Force. She got out shortly after I was born. So I grew up, it was single mom and me in a small apartment. She was on welfare, worked. I went to public school. Watched a lot of cartoons and this and that and the other. And looking back, I kind of realized why I ended up taking the path I did, because I wanted to fill that need inside myself of protector and defender. Kind of the male archetypal role, so to speak. Yet I was doing it. I was doing it blindly, pretty much, because I had no role model for that side of things. Okay, anyway, the things I ate. I grew up eating the same things all my friends ate, all the same things that were fed in school. All the processed food and drink full of all the chemicals and ingredients that shouldn't be in something that's passed off as food and drink. Such as things like aluminum dioxide, titanium dioxide, these different dyes and these different chemicals, to where if you look at the ingredient list on most things, you'll find at the store, anything processed, you'll find ingredients that if you look at the specific ingredients themselves, you'll see that it's harmful to consume. And looking back now, I realize why that was part of the reason I couldn't think or feel clearly. It was the things I was consuming. It was all the candy. It was also the vaccines that I was injected with that I know did the biggest portion of damage, the earliest. So let me explain the best I can again and see how this comes out. the vaccines put the right hemisphere of my brain into like a fog, a haze, a sleep. I couldn't creatively line up what I saw in reality with what I was being taught. I couldn't do it big picture wise because what I was being taught was going more so into my left brain, and I was very, very left brain imbalanced in that modality for the majority of my life until a few years ago when I realized just what the problem was. Way too late. Anyway, being locked into that mode to where the right hemisphere can't creatively really picture ideas and concepts that are coming through. It tends to rely on other things when it's in that fog, that haze. And it's because of all the metals and the chemicals and the things. It's mostly the metals that are injected that do that to the brain. It shuts it off. It's so the messages can't get from left to right hemisphere fully. So those neurons can't fire and those neural pathways die off. Though they can come back. They can heal. Anyway, the programming from all the major networks, all the stuff that's shown from the cartoons on up, it doesn't matter what. It shows these images, these false portrayals of reality and situations within reality to where they're reacted to in a totally ridiculous or immoral or harmful way. These images are portrayed over and over and over and over. And when the right brain can't do the work it should be doing on its own to really get past what the five senses are told, that it's going directly into the left brain. And then I don't want to get too much into it, but the right brain takes those images in and it's programming going straight in, creating all the pictures that are then associated with what's been learned, with what's been taught, with what's been drilled in by repetition, these different beliefs of this belief system or that belief system. Here's the thing. For anyone that's caught up in all of those belief systems as they're taught, as the way we've all been taught, like I did, and you want to take the path of protecting and defending life. Let me rephrase. You want to take the path of protecting and defending. Really examine the situation you're in and what's going on around you. Because you don't ever want to have to look back at yourself and your past and try to reconcile things and ask yourself, why did I hurt or harm them? Whoever they are that you may have interacted with over the course of your life, you don't want to have to say, why did I harm them? Or worse yet, infinitely worse yet, which I had to ask myself, why did I kill him or them? No matter how cool they portray it to look on TV or the movies, to go out, to be the hero, to go out and do this or that. When you ask yourself that question later, and you discard all the beliefs that you were taught that got you there in the first place, you realize you should have never been there in the first place, because the root of the reason of being there was because of money, most likely, at least on one side of the coin or the other. One party or the other was probably paid to go there and fight, or go fight this person, or go do this or that or the other for money. Maybe both parties, because maybe both parties were set up by the same folk that set up everyone and every belief system and every they control. It's it's likely the ones that make the money that aren't a part of any of these systems. So, but by portraying it in such a way, the protector, defender aspect of especially masculinity, especially to a young boy such as myself, the way I saw in cartoons like G.I. Joe, I want to go do that kind of thing and protect my country and be the hero. That's because my right brain couldn't really piece together the big picture of life itself. That question about you don't want to have to look back and ask yourself why you harmed someone, or worse yet, killed them. You don't. Because you'll find that most likely, that there was absolutely no good reason, because most likely somebody shouldn't have been there in the first place to cause that encounter or situation to occur. Most times it's because someone was being paid to. And when that's realized, and when it's realized that the money system itself is simply a belief, it's the false exchange of energy as currency. And it's that, if I didn't mention it, I did mention it earlier, it's that belief. It's that belief in the money system that all the other belief systems are built atop of. I realized that when I was taking courses in psychology after I retired, and I saw the fraud in academia itself, and I saw just that fraud, and then of course that fraud built on a money system where a bunch of dishonesty is being peddled around and degrees being conveyed on folk, all for money, and all based, not all, but a lot based on nonsense. It's not helpful whatsoever, just to create the debt slaves that don't know anything more than what they did before they went there. Now, actually, they know even less because they're more compartmentalized in the way they think, because that's another way this works. All these systems all have their different lingos and acronyms and terminologies. The way they speak to each other to where outsiders can't tell exactly what they're talking about sometimes because of just the terminology, that the grammar that they're taught and the definitions that go with that grammar. The thing is, when that right brain is shut off, it can't conceptualize the big picture of the grammar and the definitions that are assigned and what could be deeper and what's it really mean. And those definitions aren't looked into because whatever's taught is accepted. And whatever's just taught and accepted is a belief. It's not a knowing. It's not a knowing inside. And that's what I had to go back and sort through for myself and discard the beliefs I was taught. And I had to know things for myself. Now, knowing what I know looking back, I know it was the same setup that's been going on for generations. I don't know how far back. I don't know because, like I said before, what we were taught about history, his story is just that. It's different stories of different nonsense to keep us all wondering just what the heck it is that's going on here, who we are, where we come from, and this and that. So when I was able to detoxify enough and realize what was going on and saw myself in the mirror and saw what I had let myself be turned into in that state of animal man because I thought I was just no better than any other animal, one of the tenets of Satanism, which at the time, the experience I was living in the materialistic way I saw the world, the way I was taught, the way my brain was shut down, the way it was made to be out of no choice of my own. That's the vaccines, that's the metals, that's the shut off between hemispheres. Because of that, and because of just believing and trusting those in the false positions of authority that taught me things, and not questioning for myself because I didn't realize I needed to, I fell right into all the same beliefs that all my friends fell into, and my family, and everyone else I've known. So, getting some of that stuff out of my body and switching to a plant-based diet, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and water, and fasting, and then sticking to that diet of as natural as I could find in its natural state, not in a box or bottle or an injection or a pill. And I went that route along with the cannabis oil that I make. And I consumed large doses at the beginning because I was almost dead. And that's when I saw myself in the mirror, so to speak, and really started to look for answers. Once my brain started to clear and heal, because according to studies, neurogenesis can occur from consuming the cannabinoids in the cannabis oil that come from the cannabis plant, contrary to popular propaganda, along with healing cancerous cells and all kinds of other problems in the body and the mind. It really lets you realize that the body and mind are one thing, and that then there's the spirit. The spirit is the thoughts and the emotions that the mind manifests, and the feelings inside the body, and then there's the soul. The soul in me, that's what was so asleep, and I didn't realize it because I couldn't think clearly and see the big picture for what it was, for life itself, or more importantly, the deeper introspective picture inside myself of life inside myself, and what I was, and that this is this body, this is all I get. This is all the property any of us get here in this life, in this experience. Souls, spirits, with a body for a limited time in the physical world to experience it and to learn and grow, to grow that soul, because when you leave here, you don't leave here with anything. Not your body, only what you've learned and what you've grown, your own energy that'll be released back out. Will it get out? Those are the things I ask myself. And unfortunately, I didn't ask myself those things way earlier in life, because when I did, that's when all the deep hurt and pain came in from my own actions in the past, or inactions based off different beliefs and not knowing of my own and not questioning it. So a lot of crying, openly sobbing about things as I sorted through things inside. It's a dark place. It's a dark place that you can get to inside without even realizing, without even knowing something's wrong. That's what's so scary. And that's the state so many are in out there in the public, in the general population, that are watching and getting their news from the news, They're news from even some of the alternative news, because the alternative news has in alternative places and alternative concepts, new age type things. There's more traps waiting for those that break out of their beliefs that they were taught. When they realize those beliefs were just beliefs and they were taught nonsense, they start looking for something different. And then that's the time when you run into hearing. It's a saying that goes something like, never mind. See what happens. I go to try and use someone else's words, and now I just hung up. So.
Was it the truth is the lie you haven't heard yet, that saying?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, a new truth could just be an old lie that you hadn't heard before. And that's so very true. Nice shiny lies to pull folk into places of apathy, places still of moral relativism, places where they still look at others and judge them by the labels that they want to attach to them, or the label that that individual happens to have just because of their experience here. Those things are taught behaviors, and they're portrayed constantly with what's shown from any of the networks and the movies it's shown. And I probably talked about it, and I'm probably repeating myself. So, about repeating myself, and about those questions. When I deployed in 2005, I was in the Army for 21 years, not at the time of 2005, but I was in the Army for a total of 21 years. I joined October 1994. When I deployed, it was 2005. February 19th, 2005. That's when my soul shattered, because that threw me into some sort of weird, almost time loop that I would then be trapped in for years afterwards. And I didn't know how to process it. Actual engagement, actual firing, the actual taking of life. Was it my bullets or was it their bullets? It doesn't matter. It was all of our bullets. And the fact at the bottom, the root, that cause that I talked about earlier, when I got down to why, it comes down to I was there because I was paid to be there in that country, in Iraq, when there was no reason to be there. That wasn't to protect and defend life. That was to protect and defend a belief of someone. And we were paid to do it. And that took a long time for me to realize. And when I came back from there, my wife said I would say things and repeat stories of being over there and different events, but I would repeat them over and over and over and over and over. And I didn't realize I was doing it because I was so totally fractured inside without realizing it, because my soul itself couldn't process just what the fuck just happened. Why did I do that to another life? And because of, in a large part, because of the vaccines and the training and the total crushing of one's empathy throughout that process, and the burning out of one's own ability to think and process events and situations. You let the system think for you, and you don't think for yourself. and you just go right along, keep doing what you're doing, trying to get through, even though you're broken inside now. I was broken. Yet I continued the rest of my career in the psychological, the brain chemistry changing medications from the psychiatrist did nothing but worsen it. It kept me from going inside and realizing what had happened. It kept me even more and more shut off and more trapped in these different loops of thoughts and just trapped within myself somewhere with things I couldn't reconcile. So things I just put away and suppressed because parts of me were burnt out to the point where I couldn't process things fully. I was unable to. So I continued my career thinking I was doing right the whole time, even though looking back now, I know I realize just why I got so dark, because my reality, the dream of the reality I was in of being that idea of what that archetype I wanted to fill as a male in society, protecting and defending, that dream shattered when it turned from just training to actually doing. And that shattered the dream, and I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize that the whole time I had been living a dream since I was a child, a dream that was programmed into me. A fake name on a fake birth certificate because someone laid claim to this whole place long before any of us got here, because they said God said they should. God said, hey, you have authority to lay claim to all the land and life here because I said so. So you should write it down and you should tell everyone that. And if they don't agree, I guess kill them or whatever until everyone just knows that, that whole thing. The Holy See trust, I guess, where all the other trusts are built on. Even the trust that then becomes our name, the birth certificate trust, that whole fakery. All these belief systems built upon belief systems. Why? For control. For control. How? With money. Somebody said money's the root of all evil. I don't know if that's the case, but I know it's the motivator. In the programming, the television, the cartoons, the video games, it reinforces it. And it reinforces the ideas of division, and it reinforces the ideas of lashing out and fighting and hurting those that aren't like you for reasons. None of them are good reasons when you think about it and you feel inside, would you want that done to you or your family or anyone you love or care about? And then you come to the conclusion, no. So this isn't just for folks that take up professions in arms where it's a military being used in another country or the police force being used here for the same reasons. It's the legal system, too, that supports it. It's the academics that support all of them, that teach all of these things. It's all because of money. But it's also those folks that are out there just doing what they consider normal, just like I consider what I was doing normal somehow. Folks that are making these foods and drinks that have all these chemicals in them. Someone along the line knows that stuff is toxic and it's harmful and it should not be consumed, yet it's being put in there anyway. So with the constant production of these things that are harmful and the selling of these things that are harmful and the stocking of shelves, all of that is causing harm to not just you or your family, but to folk you don't know all over the place, and you don't realize it. You have to look at these ingredients of things. Look at your own shot records and then look up the ingredients of the shots themselves that are in your own shot records. And then consider those ingredients on the labels of food and drink, and consider the different metals For example, a couple years ago when I was in Walmart, I figured, I wonder what's in this jar of Vlasic pickles. I used to love pickles when I was a kid, and I figured what could they do to, I'm sure they add something that shouldn't be in a jar of pickles, that should be cucumbers and vinegar and some salt maybe. Figured there would be something, of course, because it has the stork and it has the, it's fun. Titanium dioxide. Why would titanium dioxide be in pickles? Well, it goes along with all the metals, doesn't it? The metals that are in the vaccines, the metals that are in the food and drink that are supposedly food and drink, the metals that are in the pills being sprayed in the air, being breathed in. Then with all these frequencies going, those metals that are all throughout the body, and most importantly, the ones that are in the brain, metal in a microwave with these frequencies going off. Think of that on a microscopic scale. These little tiny particles being irradiated from all of these devices and all these waves being put out, these frequencies being propagated. And those little tiny sparks and snaps as if metal was in a microwave. Every little snap and spark could be a thought that then manifests, that then has an emotion attached, an emotion that's played out from something that was seen on the screen at one time, and then a feeling might be felt inside. Due to the situation you're in at the time, if you get a whole bunch of snaps and pops going in your brain and you can't process the situation that's going on, you might react in a way that can be considered animalistic, as in being in fight or flight mode when you should not be. It's because you yourself are off balance because there's too much toxicity in the body, too much in the mind, for the spirit to know clearly what these thoughts and emotions are interlinked with the feeling, and for the soul to be guiding and knowing that its infinite portion of energy that inhabits the body is the part that will be leaving this existence one day. But for now, it still inhabits this body that's not leaving until this body is dead, and we're all in that same situation. So all I want to get across, I guess, is don't use microwaves either. It destroys the food, and it's more harmful frequencies. I think the other things I might cover in the little wrap up at the end, but yeah, I think I'll leave it here. So thanks for listening. Though I'm going to say that again with the part I recorded earlier that I thought was the end. Oh, one last thing. I also, I read those comments earlier. I'm going to read, I replied in the interim, or I got a reply to my reply, So I got another comment that kind of ties this whole thing up, I think, real well. So it might have turned out to be better that it turned out the way it did, and I lost what I had earlier. So see how this turns out.
I appreciate the response. Thank you. The fact that you have the ability to both recognize and admit that you are working for the wrong side and subsequently come out and speak on it is a testament to your humility and willpower. I am happy that you did not choose the easy way out by joining the suicide squad you mentioned. People such as my brother, the Marine, need to hear from past military vets that have awoken to the truth concerning what it means to put on a uniform. I wish you all the best, brother. Take care. And I really appreciate that. And I figure if nothing else, this can show that two folks that don't know each other, have no idea who the other one is, can communicate back and forth messages with just text. And it can be a good constructive back and forth instead of ugliness and judgment and this and that and the other, and we can just talk back and forth. So I figure if nothing else, it's an example of that, and I do appreciate it. So thanks for listening.